As businesses around the world buckle in and brace themselves for the impact that the coronavirus pandemic will have on their operations, proper crisis management has become a necessity for company leadership. Yet only 54% of companies have a crisis plan in place. One of the most important actions that business leaders can take in the event of a global crisis event like COVID-19 is to quickly implement a plan to communicate company-wide updates. That's why Beekeeper prepared a general list of internal communication tips to help you effectively communicate with your team during a crisis situation. Download Beekeeper's free crisis communications checklist today at www.beekeeper.io/crisisavertedpodcast. That's www.beekeeper.io/crisisavertedpodcast. Welcome to the Crisis Averted Podcast, produced by CJ Media Solutions. I'm your host, CJ Arlotta. In this episode, I speak with Matt Daley, owner of Matthew C. Daley Insurance Agency. During our conversation, Matt shares his thoughts on why it's so important to keep lines of communication with clients open, especially during challenging times, and provides his insight into how business interruption insurance came into play in a big way amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Feel free to send me your feedback at cj@cjmediasolutionsllc.com. Matt can be reached at matt.daley@american-national.com. Thanks for listening. Matt, thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Matt, so for listeners who aren't familiar with you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do now?
Absolutely. So my name's Matt Daley. I am the owner and agent at Matthew Daley Insurance Agency located in Miller Place. I am a agent that focuses on small business, agriculture, life insurance, and retirement. We also do a little bit of home and auto insurance, but everybody does that nowadays. So I've tried to take my business a little bit another direction. We specialize on Long Island, anywhere from Brooklyn to Montauk. Again, the office is located in Miller Place, but I tell people that the office is the front seat of my pickup truck because I'm on the road so much. So there's a little bit about me right there for you.
So why did you decide to specialize in agriculture insurance? What's the story behind that?
So the company that I'm appointed with was formerly known as Farm Family. They started in insurance in 1955 based out of Albany, New York. In 1983, my father became appointed with them. And I followed in his footsteps. So he is still in the business. He's in the business 36 years. I came in the company 5.5 years ago, and we work side by side now. So it's kind of been a nice thing on that regard. But Farm Family was actually a mutual company owned by farmers back in the 50s, like not the insurance company farmers, but actual physical farmers. And through the years, it became such a big company that we went public in 2001 and were purchased by a parent company called American National at the time.
As a result of the pandemic, have you picked up any new clients in any new industries for your business?
Yeah, we've been kind of forced, if you will, coerced, if you will, to go in a different direction here with the pandemic. People not going outside, not wanting to see people, really put a damper on my business. And just as clarification on that, the last 3 years, I did about 40,000 miles a year in my truck, visiting clients, seeing farms, going to small businesses. And this year I'm not on pace to do 12,000. And the big reason is people don't want an outsider in their home or in their business or on their property right now, for fear of COVID. So we've tried to transition to other areas where small businesses that may not have a physical location, but have a phone number and they're willing to talk, or an email address, and we could set up a Zoom call. People like contractors, cabinet people, guys that do HVAC or plumbing or electricians. Traditionally, they don't have warehouses or offices. They work, out of their home. At the end of the day, they do the billing. They answer emails. So those are the folks that we've been talking to and targeting this spring, because we're on the same level as them now. We're working from home. They're working from home. It's been a nice alignment for us.
Yeah, I actually don't have a physical location myself. I think you're probably going to see a lot more of that in the future, for sure.
I think you're 100% correct. When I went home, so my office, like I said, is in Miller Place, but on March 17th, we decided that COVID was real, it was coming, and we needed to get home. The two staff people that work for me, one is a single mother, and the other one supports both her and her boyfriend, as he's working part-time going to school, and she's the one paying the bills, and none of us wanted to get sick. I have a pregnant wife at home, so we decided then to go home. That cost me about 5 or 10 grand of an investment to get them computers that worked at home, to get a VPN set up so that we wouldn't miss a single beat. We had all of our client files at home, and we actually have our desk phones that ring here at our houses now. So we made an investment to get out of the office. And when we went back, we were left scratching our heads going, well, we're back, but why? And I think a lot of people are going to be asking themselves that as this continues to unfold here in the next 6 months to a year.
Are you going to allow some of your employees to work from home going forward?
So no, as of right now, I brought everybody back. We're under lock and key, meaning there's nobody allowed in or out except for the employees and myself that work in the office. No guests, no outside visitors. The reason that we went back full-time currently is, I think, for consistency. I wanted the staff to get back to the continuity and the culture that we have in the office of being around one another, staying positive around one another. And everybody was kind of getting tired of looking at the same four walls. So once we had an opportunity to get back in the office safely and comfortably, we took advantage of it. But in the long term, there may be some changes coming that result in 1 or 2 staff people being able to work from home. Yeah.
So when the pandemic hit, what were some of the main challenges you faced as a business owner, and how did you overcome them?
Absolutely. I think the biggest challenge that I faced was over the last 5 years, my entirety of my business model was run face to face, whether that was clients coming into my office, me going out to their farm or small business, or sitting at home with them at the kitchen table after dinner to go over a life insurance policy. All of that went away on March 23rd. So I was left to my own devices to say, well, how am I going to continue to stay in business? None of us know how long this will continue. There has to be another way. Like everybody else, I really took to Zoom. I took to GoToMeeting, and we did a lot of conference calls where those who did not understand the concept of Zoom or GoToMeeting hopped on just a regular general conference call with us where I could tie 2 or 3 other people in. And we tried to make it as comfortable as possible. I tried to use some of the other services that were out there like DoorDash or Grubhub to actually send people food for their meeting. So if we normally would have a lunch meeting, my goal was, let's keep it to a lunch meeting. I'd order you lunch from your favorite place just as I would if we were together for that meeting, or bring lunch into your business like we normally would. That way you could eat while we went through everything. We could both kind of take advantage of that time together and make it feel as comfortable as possible. We saw a little bit of pushback initially, but I think everybody kind of had to go in that direction, and ultimately people really began to accept it.
I'm sure a lot of people appreciated you sending them lunch.
People like lunch. If there's one thing I've learned about being in business, people like lunch.
That's a really, really great idea. Really great idea. But how has your role as an insurance agent evolved during all of this? Do you find yourself taking on additional responsibilities?
Yeah. So when Governor Cuomo came down with the essential and non-essential list, we were lucky enough to have been deemed essential. So we were able to continue to keep working. We could have stayed in our office if we felt it was safe. But there is a large part of insurance that the normal person doesn't see, which would include, being able to access cash value in your life insurance policy during this tough time. So there were people who, as an example, were laid off, but continued to have to make payments on autos or on their home mortgage or on rent. And they were able to access cash value in their whole life insurance policies to carry themselves through the past 3 or 4 months. Me being accessible to them, no different than I would have been before the pandemic, was a huge positive because it allowed them some sense of normalcy in their life. The other thing that we tried to do in our office, because we realized that new business, so to speak, was coming to a screeching halt, was let's reach out to our current client base just to see how they're doing. So when I left the office, I took with me the 48 rolls of toilet paper that I had from Costco and the 24 rolls of paper towels that I had with me. And when I made calls to some of my older clients, I offered to come out and drop toilet paper and paper towel on their front porch for them, because we all went through that time where there was no meat, no toilet paper, no paper towel. You couldn't get anything. And I have some clients that are in their late 80s and early 90s. Now, only 2 of them took advantage of it, but it was just an opportunity to do something bigger than myself, outside of insurance, that I normally wouldn't drop a roll of toilet paper off at somebody's house as their insurance agent, but it was what the times called for right now. So we tried to do a little bit different things to help people.
What a great way to strengthen that relationship with your clients. What were some other ways that you improved communication with your clients during the pandemic? Were you sending out, newsletters, perhaps trying to communicate via social media? Were there any new initiatives that you put forth?
Appreciate that. Yeah, great question. So we are big proponents of social media at my office. To begin with, I've been on Facebook, Instagram, a little bit on Twitter and LinkedIn for 5.5 years. So we actually really stepped our game up. We started doing more outreach into our communities. So one of the big undertakings that we did was we purchased a $25 gift card every week from a small business that had been affected in one of our towns. Some of it was clients, some of it weren't clients, some were food places, some were breweries or wineries, barbershops, small clothing stores. It didn't matter. If it was a small business that we knew was suffering, we bought a gift card and we gave it away on social media via Instagram or Facebook, just by liking the post and tagging a friend. So you were entered to be put into that giveaway. So we tried to do a little bit for the community there. On a communication side, we actually were able to secure an e-fax system, where all of the faxes go right to our email. My phones ring at our houses when we bring them home versus at the office. And we also installed a VPN, which allows us to access our entire file cabinet from anywhere in the world with a password. So from a technological standpoint, it was all things that were on, the to-do list, if you will, but they all just came to the forefront because of COVID. So we did not want our clients to suffer. We wanted to make sure that if there was some way they could communicate with us, that they were able to do that. Aside from that, all of my clients have my cell phone number. They can text me, they can call me, they can email me, they can get me pretty much 24 hours a day if they need.
What were some of their immediate concerns when everything started going down?
So the traditional concern that we faced right away was, how am I going to pay my bill? Is there anything you're going to do to help with our bills? And our company was one of the many that stepped up and offered a discount on personal automobile. We offered a 15% discount, much like many of the other carriers did, because people were not driving. We also were a part of New York State's rule that there were no cancellations during COVID-19. So that went from March until June 5th, where nobody would be canceled. So we spent a lot of time putting people at ease and trying to work out payment plans with them to make sure when June 6th hit, that they were not stuck with massive bills. Another big concern that people faced that didn't end up so rosy was the concern of business interruption. As a lot of businesses were closed, and I deal particularly with small businesses, there was a lot of question of, is there coverage for business interruption here? And the unfortunate part of this answer is no, there wasn't coverage for business interruption because there was no actual property loss sustained. So when it comes to business interruption, if a car drives through the front window of a bakery and that bakery can't continue to make cookies and cupcakes and cakes because they're closed for 4 weeks, that's a traditional property loss that would lead to business interruption payment. With COVID-19 and with the government shutdown, those are both actually excluded causes of losses on insurance policies. So it was very unfortunate to have to explain to people that, hey, there isn't coverage here. We didn't just make this up now. It's kind of been on the books for a long time. It's not something we ever faced nor thought we would face. But from an insurance standpoint, one of the real reasons that it wasn't included in people's policies is because it would have been cost prohibitive. the reality is the more insurances are added on, the more coverages that people are able to get, the more expensive policies become. So, over the last 10 years, outside of the last 6 months, if somebody said to you, there's a virus coming that's going to shut the entire globe down, you should buy insurance for it, you would think I was trying to sell you a bridge in Brooklyn. So we're now at a point in the industry where I assume there's going to be some change, where I think there will be some more kicking the tires on creating some coverages around viruses and governmental shutdowns, but that's going to come from above, and it's going to take a year or two or even 3 or 4 to get down to the meat and potatoes of it.
From an insurance standpoint, what were some of the biggest lessons businesses learned as a result of the pandemic? What were some of the key takeaways in your opinion?
I think flexibility and accessibility were two things that a lot of insurance agencies struggled with. So when you look at your traditional insurance agency, or when you think of the broker that you deal with for your home or your auto or your small business, they're typically people who've been around a little while, who are set in their ways. As I said earlier, my father's been in this business 36 years. He's been in the same office for all 36 years with the same desk chair. We joke about that, but he's been there a long time. So there was not a great ability on a lot of insurance agents' part, such as my father, to transition quickly and efficiently to going home to continuing to serve their clients. There was a lot of loose ends that needed to be tied up to do so. I felt that as a younger insurance agent, we were a bit more prepared. We were a bit more ahead of the curve. And from a technological standpoint, we were more comfortable with Zoom and with holding meetings like this with phone calls than some of the older agents might have been. But there's always going to be challenges in every industry, no matter your age or how long you've been around, the demographic you're working with, you're facing challenges every day. And I think that COVID was a different one for all of us. And the big thing that I kept in mind with my staff on our weekly meetings that we continued to hold was everybody is going through this. So when you pick up the phone, when you answer a call, when you answer an email, just remember, you have no idea what the person on the other side of that email or phone call is going through. Treat them like a person and everything will be okay.
You mentioned this a little before about company culture and why you wanted to bring everybody eventually back to the office. How did you keep that culture intact when everybody was working remotely?
Yeah, the same exact way that I dealt with my clients and spoke to them. We held a Zoom meeting once a week. We did a conference call at least once a day for 10 minutes just to kind of wrap up the day, talk about the work we did. I would ask about the kids that were at home that my one employee was doing homeschooling for. 3 or 4 times throughout COVID, my wife and I sent gift cards to their houses for DoorDash so they could get delivery in, so they could get a break from cooking too. We tried to do things. My wife's very involved in my business, and from a marketing standpoint, she helps with a lot of the great ideas. So when COVID hit, we really tried to do things that lended more to the human side of business than the business side of business. And I wanted my employees to feel that they were still cared for, still loved, and that there was still a place for them, even though I couldn't see them or be in the office with them. And that led them to want to get back quicker, in my opinion, because they remembered how fun it is at the office. And again, that word culture comes up a lot. It's become a real buzzword in today's day and age, but it's so important. If people like where they go to work every day, if they like showing up every day, the work doesn't seem like work to them.
And it's the same thing with your clients you were talking about earlier, doing those little things, checking up on them during the pandemic, seeing what they need.
Exactly. There was a lot of bad things that happened during the pandemic. I mean, nobody can deny that. But one of the things that I learned was back to basics, and some of, the human needs or the human things that we think we need, when they're taken away or stripped away from us that quickly, such as sports and entertainment, movies, and being able to go out, you get back to the core basics and you realize that the only thing you really need is air, water, and somebody that you love. After that, if there's no movies and sports to go see and time wasters, you get a really close-knit group of people. And for me, that's my clients and my employees. These are people I talk to every single day. These are people that I care about as much as family, and that I want to make sure they're doing well when times are challenging and they're doing well when times are good.
Was your wife the one behind the hashtag Daley Inspiration sunglasses?
My wife is the one behind any good idea you see there, my friend. Yeah, so the sunglasses idea was actually worked up by my wife and another employee that has since moved on to raise a family. But the whole point was to try and do something fun. If I could be honest with you, the business of insurance is boring. I don't know if I'm telling you a secret or not, but it's not exactly exciting. And I'm 36 years old now. When I started, I was 30. I'm typically dealing with people that are 7 years older than me or 7 years younger than me. I mean, there's some outliers in that, but the law of averages says that I'm dealing with a lot of millennials. And I need to make this business attractive to people that are in my age bracket because it's so important. And it's important to be able to get in front of people to educate them. So sometimes marketing is used in devious ways, but for us, we try to use it in a way like, hey, here's something cool and functional. It's a pair of sunglasses, right? Like if you go to the beach and lose them, you're not going to be heartbroken because you didn't lose your Ray-Bans. You lost a pair of $2.50 Matt Daley glasses. Shoot me an email, I'll send you another pair.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it allows us to build and forge a relationship together where hopefully there's some trust there down the line. And when you have an insurance question, you can reach out to me and know that I'm going to shoot you straight.
You getting a lot of leads from that?
Yeah. So we started the campaign 2 years ago. In 2 years, we've sent out 275 pairs of sunglasses.
Wow.
From a new premium written standpoint, we've written probably $60,000 or $70,000 in new business premium. And from a life insurance standpoint, we've written probably 8 or 9 new clients' life insurance policies. So it has certainly paid its dividends for me time and time again. But yeah, I mean, it was a good campaign.
What are some of your thoughts on business insurance market for the remainder of the year? What should businesses expect? A lot of change, little change?
I think businesses should be on their toes. They need to call their insurance agents and they need to discuss things such as adjustments to their payroll. So a lot of small businesses, contractors, landscapers, those sorts of blue collar trades, they're based on payroll. So if they sat home for 3.5 months or 14 weeks and didn't have any payroll, they're paying insurance bills on payroll that was projected. Well, the projections have changed. So if you haven't addressed that with your insurance agent, you probably should, because you're going to end up overpaying this year. Sure, you'll get the money back at the audit at the end of the year, but there's an opportunity there for the client to save a little bit of money, for the agent to make sure that we're helping the clients out at a time when financially everybody needs a few more dollars. So from a client perspective, that's one thing I would say. Is there any more changes coming? I mean, I don't know any more than whether the weather is going to be sunny or rainy tomorrow. If we deal with another shutdown, which is what we keep hearing and reading about in the newspapers, there could be a lot of change coming, sure.
Do you think this experience has made businesses more aware of their business insurance policies, and is that a good thing?
From my perspective, yeah, I certainly dealt with a lot more phone calls from people who traditionally didn't ask a lot of questions, but now wanted to know more. It is an amazing thing. As an insurance agent, I feel it's my role to educate the client to what they need. Some clients feel that they trust or they don't want to be bored with all of the information. Give me the basics and I can move on. And others want to know, where every T is crossed and every I is dotted. I think that with COVID, we've tended to drift somewhere in between this, and more people are asking more questions because they're worried about their coverages. They're worried about the what ifs. I mean, we just faced something massive. New York has done an amazing job in really turning the tides on COVID. It's not over yet, but we've really done a great job in getting ahead of it. And I think those people that run small businesses want to know, okay, if this happens again, what do I do? When do I call you? Why do I call you? What are you going to do when I call you? That's a great thing. An open line of communication between an insurance agent and their client is the best thing for the client. Open, honest, and allows the agent to be open and honest right back.
So educating clients is going to become a lot easier for you.
I would hope so. But as you and I both know, the further we get away from things, the mind begins to fleet and doesn't remember how bad they were. When I bring up Sandy now, there's people that say, oh, yeah, it was bad, but for me, it wasn't that bad. Well, at the time in 2012, when Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy hit, it was one of the worst things that, Long Island's ever faced. So tragedy allows people to grow stronger, but only if they hold on to a little bit of that tragedy and they remember how bad it was.
Matt, thanks for speaking with me today.
Hey, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.